Hey everybody, welcome to the Exposition Table. I'm your first host Joe,
And I'm your other host, Dan.
and on this episode, we are talking about our many attempts to try to branch out into different things, and why it didn't click with things, or just didn't stick the landing with whatever like someone recommended us, or just our attempts to broaden our horizons.
Human psychology is very complex. We as individuals can only enjoy so much and only have so many specific tastes. No matter how good a piece of media is, or no matter how much people can recommend it, we just can't like everything. So, these are things that we certainly wanted to give our fair shake, but just how we're made just kept us from having these click.
Or sometimes circumstances just don't quite work out.
And
Alright.
with that, Joe is going to start us off.
Alright, so like the clearest example for me is the many occasions, well, I say many, but like 3 or 4, where I've tried to play Skyrim and just can't seem to get invested into any playthrough. And it's like, I don't even think Skyrim's like a bad game or anything, but whether it's due to other things getting in the way or just, I don't know, feeling a bit aimless, so I just kind of fall off and just don't look back. Or the time where I just so happened to start playing it, and the PS4 I was using at the time just stopped reading discs.
Yeah, Skyrim's not like something I think I could even play. The one time that we were over at a shared friend's house and they were playing Skyrim, they happened to make it the most boring possible playthrough of a game they could ever do. They were doing, I think they started a fresh file and then were just doing the most neurotic grinding for items and like literally making it the most boring possible way to play the game if you're trying to get someone else into it. So, not only do I find games with vast amounts of extra content and like a lack of direct, clear goals very boring, which is why I can't get into games like Fallout and why I still haven't finished Breath of the Wild, because it's like if the game's not going to give me like a more direct goal and it's just going to give me all this extra guff to do, I oftentimes will tune out and just kind of get bored. If the game's, I can't play Minecraft for that same reason. Yeah. So for me, like in general, like big, empty, infinite, open world games just kind of don't click with me. But in this particular instance, this person actively made me not want to play this game. So, the very specific nature in which other people try to introduce something to you can also be a big deterrent.
Yeah, sometimes it's just the impression you get when someone tries to show you something. And it's just like,
The impression that I made.
although, before I get into more of those examples, you kind of talking about your inability to get into a lot of open world games is kind of something I kind of share. Because yeah, I played a bit of Breath of the Wild, enjoyed it, and then just kind of had my fill, and never really tried to complete it since.
Yeah, that's kind of how I was with Breath of the Wild.
I mean, Zelda as a whole just kind of is like that. Like, I really liked Ocarina of Time. I played some of the first Zeldas. I've tried yeah, I think I've tried every 3D Zelda, and just, I don't know, it's just not something I can, like, I can appreciate them, but for whatever reason, I just don't get grabbed by them.
I feel like the old-fashioned 3D Zeldas had a very specific ebb and flow that I felt was very appealing. For me, like, I always say that Twilight Princess is like the perfect length and perfect amount of content for a Zelda game because it's a big game, but it's not too big and it's not too aimless. I feel like, I mean, bearing in mind I have my own issues with Skyward Sword, and I think, Wind Waker can sometimes be a little too broad in its map, but I think for me in particular, something like Breath of the Wild just feels like there needs to be a good ratio between how much empty space there is and how much traveling you need to do between story related content for the game to kind of keep you on a track for it. As I feel like, as much as people want, openness in their games and not to feel like they're being handheld, Zelda has always kind of had this particular, like, story to gameplay ratio that's more than other franchises. There's always a lot more story bits, at least in the 3D games, than like another other franchises where usually there's less dialogue and there's more gameplay moments. But I feel like Zelda very specifically has kind of made that work. It's got like RPG pacing, but with an action game in that sort of a sense, where there's sometimes like minutes of dialogue, but it works for Zelda.
I think
I think Breath of the Wild just didn't click in that same way, for me personally, as well. Just because I felt like I just wasn't getting that same like reward of new narrative bits and new character bits as frequently, and it just wasn't kind of keeping me in the right. There's a comfort to that traditional 3D Zelda style that Breath of the Wild just didn't have, and it was fun for what it was, but I wasn't enjoying it as a Zelda game. I was enjoying it as just a game.
also just kind of just in my experience, seeing other people's experiences with that series, is that most Zelda fans generally have like a couple games they just can't get grabbed by.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really the case with, tastes as a whole. Despite having a pretty clear formula for a while, I feel like what people come to Zelda for can kind of give particular games in the series are like make it or break it. All right, a lot of people don't jive with Skyward Sword. I've seen a lot of people like a lot of games, but the major titles, but Wind Waker or Twilight Princess, or just can't quite get into Majora's Mask because of its structure.
What exactly are you trying to say about Zelda? Since it seems like partially this is into your feelings as well. What exactly about Zelda doesn't appeal to you, and what exactly can that say about your taste as a gamer?
I feel like Zelda has a lot of things I like, but I feel like it doesn't do. Most other games don't. I feel like they have a bunch of stuff I like, but nothing I love.
That's fair. It's possible to look over something and be like, wow, that's like a really good idea. It just doesn't do what I want it to correct. Like, it doesn't click correctly.
Yeah.
Which, there's franchises that have definitely been like that for me as well. Where it's like, I thought the idea was cool, it just didn't, like, execute it in a way that particularly jived with me.
Yeah, because I'm not really saying any of these games are notably deficient, even if I have.
Oh, no. Yeah, the point of this discussion is not to say that things are bad. This is just talking about
we didn't
things
get into them.
we don't click with. Yeah, so the point of this is not to critique this, just the point of this is almost like a personal therapy. We're going through talking about these things and saying what they say about us. So,
I think in the case of both Majora's Mask and Twilight Princess, their prologues just kind of knock me out. Like, I get through them, and I don't have the will to go on. Not even saying that like the game gets worse after that or anything. And yeah, I go through that, and then something else catches my eye. So, maybe it's me being flighty.
it's funny, you're kind of talking about Zelda sort of like wearing you down and just not clicking. And something I've noticed is like a genre I really wish I could play more of, but always just can never click with correctly, or like the character action games. Like, for whatever reason, I think it's just like pacing structure. It's funny, I was talking about Zelda, how I feel like Zelda has like the right ebb and flow with it. But character action games, like, keep in mind, I haven't played the entire subgenre of them, so there might be games that handle this better. But a couple examples I can think of. A good chunk of the Devil May Cry games, Bayonetta. I know I was playing a couple other ones. I think El Shaddai was one of the better ones. Hi-Fi Rush. Games that like have way too much cutscene. And like I want to enjoy the story, but like they have levels that go on for like an hour, and usually for me, like, I get anxious about it because I don't want to. So let me use, I guess, like, I don't know. I mean, I could use any of them as an example, but like, let's say I'm playing like any of these games, and it's like if the level is going to be anywhere from a half hour to an hour, that's a long commitment for a game. For just beating up dudes and watching cutscenes. And yeah, you can save and have checkpoints in the middle, but I don't want to do that in the middle of the level, especially if I'm getting ranked for it. I'm like, psychologically, I gotta finish the level, which means I gotta commit to that like hour plus of the gameplay for it. I don't want to pause and come back.
Yeah, it sounds like an experience where it's taking a lot of time, but it doesn't feel like you could take your time with it.
Yeah, like the gameplays are always fun and like they're always cool scenarios and all that stuff. But the particular way that they're structured for me just doesn't jive with my way of playing games. Especially one thing I don't like with character action games is a lot of times that their linearity means that when they hide collectibles and they hide secrets in levels, it drives me up a wall because I want to collect all that stuff, but I can't. Like, unless I look at a guide, I'm not going to be replaying these games for multiple playthroughs. I want to play through the first time, try to get as much of the stuff as I can. So it's just another thing that mentally is just keeping me from wanting to play. That's why I haven't finished Bayonetta. That's why I played Devil May Cry 1 through, and I played Devil May Cry 4 when I was a kid. I got stuck on Devil May Cry 2. Now, to be fair, Devil May Cry 2 is a bad video game. That's not entirely the fault of the Devil May Cry franchise. But it does also suffer some of the same problems of that, where it's like, I want to play the game, but I also don't want to have to feel like this emotional time crunch where it's like, and it's specifically this subgenre, because I had the same issue with Lollipop Chainsaw when I played that, where the level was like, they had like 6 levels, and like the game was like, some of these levels went on for like a half hour to an hour. It's like, I'm not gonna pause and come back and finish that level. It's like pausing a movie and then coming back to it later. It's like, yeah, you can do that, but like, you're not gonna get the same experience. It's not gonna feel right, if you pause a movie and then come back to it a week later to watch the rest of it. It's like, where the hell was I? What was I doing? What was the experience I had? It's very different with games with very long levels, and that's really one of the few genres that I feel like suffers that the most. I feel like a shooter isn't as bad because shooters usually aren't so story focused, at least first person shooters. Usually there's incidental dialogue and there's like a clear idea, but like these games are like, character action games are like movie gameplay, movie. So it is like pausing a movie and coming back. So those games just have an undue amount of stress onto me that makes it difficult for me to get into them. At least for the ones that I have played. Like, I played Hi-Fi Rush. I had to take a day where I had nothing to do, and I had to sit there for like an hour straight just to get through the first level, and I'm like, I don't want to play more of it, because I want to play more of it, but if the first level is going to take me an hour, how long is the next level going to be? Another hour? Do I have a spare hour? Like, to just sit and play and focus on the characters and the gameplay and the cutscenes? Oh, and don't even get me on the ranking systems. The ranking systems like drive me up a wall because they're always like, you have to like really master the game's combats usually to get good ranks on these ranking systems, and they'll affect like other stuff. It's just like, this is a very specific kind of game that I just don't have the ability to get into myself. Like, for some people, like if I for other people, it's like they could get into this kind of stuff, have that time, and like really jive with it, and do multiple playthroughs. And it's like, I can't personally commit that kind of emotional investment into these kinds of games. I'd love to, I just can't.
That reminds me of a situation I'm finding myself into. I think over the years, particularly like Metroidvania kind of games, have kind of been losing me because, and I guess it's also a reason why I can't quite get into Zelda these days, is expecting me to search around for an item needed for progression without much context clues is just, I feel like I just don't have the mental time for that.
Yeah.
Like, I can get
We're just
invested.
old farts who hate Nintendo, but there is a point where it's like, I just don't have time to play that kind of game.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, it takes to have the experience to look it up, but like I could get into a longer game still, but I kind of need to know what to invest into it. So a game that just that could take a variable amount of time, because like I try to play Dragon Quest 3 and I get lost, and it's like, I'm not getting anything out of this. I'm just lost. I just feel frustrated and slightly annoyed.
Yeah, for this is also something that, yeah, if we were younger, maybe we could sit there and figure out the time and, figure it out. And that's part of the game. That is the game.
Yeah, it is the
Some
game.
games are harder because you get your ass kicked 18 times by a boss, and then you need to practice it. I think in general, games, I'm reaching a point where just certain games I can't devote that much time to. I can't say I can't get into the genre, I just can't play some of those games.
It's a
But
structural
yeah,
thing, not even necessarily a genre thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like, I can get into a long RPG still, but I need to be sure that I'm actually making progress in it. So a lot of those more exploration-based games just kind of lose me nowadays.
Yeah. For, depending on the genre, a lot of those games, that is the game, is
Yeah.
just exploring. Now, in Metroidvanias, I think it does depend on how they're designed and how they're made, because, the standard Metroid games, and I think a good chunk of the Castlevanias, usually do telegraph to a degree what you need to do. Like, they're not as cryptic, that you can't figure it out. And usually the ones that are a little more cryptic are older and don't have as many options, so you can usually wind up figuring it out. But yeah, it does suck to get frustrated and stuck on that one part, That one part. That's why I don't think I could ever play, like, the first Zelda game without a guide. It's like, I'm not sitting here trying to decipher all this all this nonsense.
Yeah, maybe some of the later Metroid games are more my speed.
Yeah, I'm sure something like Dread or Fusion would probably click with you. Why, did you try playing the first two Zeldas? Or first two Metroids?
Okay, so yeah, Metroid 1, Super Metroid. I also say Metroid Prime 1, but honestly, I was kind of burnt out because I just played through Link to the Past at the time, so I'm gonna half count that one, because that was very much, yeah, a me.
Well, this whole thing is a me thing.
Yeah, true. Like, I just know that me not being able to quite click with Metroid Prime last year was really just because I just played another game of this with a similar structure or similar feelings right beforehand. Whereas with Super Metroid in particular, it really is just I'm not clicking with it.
Yeah, I've never finished Super Metroid myself, and it's probably also for similar reasons. Can't say I can't get into it, it's just I've never sat down and finished it. Although I'm sure it's probably not that long of a game.
Nah, once again, once you know
We
what you're
just
doing,
suck and
it's
hate
not
Nintendo,
long.
that's the issue.
But learning to get, like, how to get into it is kind of like the point of it.
Yeah.
As a wise man once said, it's one of those where the fuck do I go kind of games. And that's a particular kind of difficulty that, yeah, in my older years, it just kind of fell off for me.
Go back for a sec, we were talking about some turn-based RPGs, and that's like really a genre that I've tried, and I just can't get into. I just can't get into traditional turn-based RPGs. And even like tactic strategy style RPGs. I just do not find that combat engaging. There have been good ones. I've played some great ones, but I just need a little bit more from the combat. And frankly, just the stories take so long. Again, the stories take so long to get into, and I think we should really rename this video, not genres we can't get into and why being old means you can't play video games anymore. Be like, yo, Final Fantasy 16, that looks dope. I can't play that. Oh my god, they're re-releasing Kirby's Return to Dreamland. Let me play through that 15 times.
Like, that's the thing, I can't even say that because, like, I still play long games. I just dumped 75 hours into Fire Emblem Engage.
Oh yeah,
And I played,
this is about me.
But yeah, but it's also like how playing other games just once just exhausts me. Now, yeah, with the JRPGs, is honestly like kind of a mixed bag for me.
I think it just depends on like.
I think it's a case by case basis.
Yeah, I think it depends on how just like well done the story is. I think when I think of a JRPG, I think of a Final Fantasy type. which is very ironic. And to take a small tangent for a sec, it's funny that while we're talking about this, there's been a big discourse about the use of the term JRPG and the negative connotations that they have. Why a lot of Japanese developers don't like using that term, because when people say it, it's often in derision and as a way to sort of attack, RPGs made in that style, because you tend to think of a Final Fantasy VII type, and I hate to say it, but when I'm talking about JRPGs, I am talking about games that feel like a Final Fantasy VII-esque. Long cutscenes, very drawn out stories, couple dungeons, slow, a lot of animations and moves, and, just a lot of stuff like that. And it's just like that kind of style game I just can't vibe with. Now, if they could make more turn-based RPGs that were like Mario and Luigi, I'd play them all day, because I fucking love that style of game. If they made a new Mario and Luigi game, I'd probably play through it like 5 times. Just give it to me. I love it. It's quick, it's snappy, it's refreshingly, lighthearted and comedic. Not to say that there aren't traditional JRPGs that are funny and like that. There just aren't that many of them. At least not as commonly. And just the snappiness of the gameplay, the combination of the platformer gameplay with the turn-based RPG gameplay.
Now that I think about it, I'm not sure why Mario and Luigi never clicked with me.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, that's actually...
It just missed you. I think it just missed you.
Yeah, I think it just missed me.
Yeah, because I've always wondered, like, you like Paper Mario, so I was curious if there's a reason you don't like Mario Luigi, or if you just never played Mario Luigi or never invested into it.
I think it's literally just the case of just never... Yeah, I think it just missed me.
Mario Luigi... Yeah, like, the first one might be, like, one of my top 10 games. That's a game I've probably 100%, or maybe not 100%, but, like, done, like, a full playthrough, like, at least half a dozen times. Like, I've done, like, a full 40 hours on the half a dozen times each. Several hundred hours I've invested in that game. I can do it. You give me that game, I'd do it again. I'll do it again right now. But the more traditional JRPGs, I just can't really click in with that.
Like, I do want to say, like, it's a genre I like quite a bit, but even in that case, I don't play that many of them. I really should play more, but yeah, I just need to find, like, a good excuse to, honestly. And sometimes, it's not even for, like, a reason. Sometimes it's just circumstance.
That is the thing about life.
Another thing I've tried to get into, like, a lot, the amount of times I've tried to get into Mega Man, and then I just don't get into Mega Man.
I don't think I will ever be able to get into Mega Man. I really like a couple of the games in the franchise, and I think Mega Man was just a franchise that I just did not have the opportunity to get into as a kid. When Mega Man was very weird. Well, first of all, like, even though I had a PS2, I primarily played on GameCube, so really my only options were, like, Legacy collections. The X games weren't coming out on there. Mega Man was despite how many Mega Man games came out when we were kids, it felt like Mega Man was on a decline, and it wasn't, like, a franchise worth talking about or paying attention to, because it was just, like, Mega Man was just that weird, like, I didn't even know X games were coming out on the PS2. I only knew about the Anniversary Collection because, I think, like, 8 billion Nintendo Powers had that one ad for the Mega Man Anniversary Collection coming out. And then, I did know about the Mega Man Battle Network games, and that was really about it. I think I might have heard about, like, ZX Advent or whatever. But that was after the decline of the Mega Man franchise. So I think, at least for me personally, it was just a case of, like, just Mega Man was already, like, in too much of a decline that I just didn't know about it or care about it. Which is a shame, because Mega Man X is, like, one of my all-time favorites now, and Mega Man X4 is phenomenal. I'm doing another playthrough of that right now. So those games are great.
I feel like I was right on the cusp of getting into Battle Network if I've just, like, heard more about it.
Yeah, I played a decent bit of Battle Network a couple years ago, and I was like, damn, I wish I'd played this as a kid. I wish I had time to like get all into that, invest all into that. There's so many other franchises where it's like just wrong place, wrong time. But I think Mega Man in particular is just a very weird case, just because of how prolific of a franchise it is. But get I did get Mega Man 9 and 10 when they came out, and that just wasn't enough to like get me to stay on the franchise.
Yeah,
I
like
don't even remember how I got into Mega Man X. I think I got Mega Man X with my Super Nintendo. I got off eBay. And eventually I just got around to it and was like, yo, this is a really good game. I want to play more of these. But like, yeah, it's a case of like I kept trying games, but I never like Mega Man never became like a franchise that clicked with me, and I think it was just partially too late, for me to really have that undying love for it. But also just the fact that it's such a scattered history with that game franchise.
Yeah, I also feel like, especially with a lot of the classic Mega Man games, is that they demand enough skill from you that you kind of have to take the time to get good at it.
Yeah.
Which, okay, I think that this is the thing with a lot of difficult games, is that when I'm just in like basic gamer mode brain and encounter a hard game and I have too many alternatives at that moment, I get stuck on like, I don't know, like Dive Man stage, and then I just like, I don't know, just play something else, and then I don't play Mega Man 5 ever again.
I will say as a counter to that, there are NES games that are much harder that I'd rather play more, even if I know I'm not going to finish them in that sitting, just because I think that they control better. And it's not that Mega Man controls bad, it's that Mega Man controls okay, but it's like really stiff and not a game, I would say. I don't think playing as Mega Man is fun. He is very like, his controls just feel a little too heavy, and just his versatility. Yeah, he has like different move. I don't think playing as Mega Man in the original Mega Man is fun. I think playing as Mega Man X in Mega Man X is fun. That's why I gravitate towards the X games a lot more, even though I still haven't played that many of them. But like, if you give me an NES controller and you're like, yo, go play Street Fighter 2010, I'm like, yo, that game plays way more fun. There's so much more mobility. Your character can move more. There's more directions you can hit. Contra, you give me Contra. I mean, I can't finish it without the Konami code, but I will sit and I'll play a full session of Contra until I lose all my lives. Just because that character is more fun to sort of move around and navigate, even though he's only got a little bit more range than Mega Man. There's just a little bit more. Mega Man is just very stiff when you compare him to other Nintendo like characters, like Mario and Mario 3's got a lot more mobility. Mega Man is just a very stiff, slow dude.
Yeah,
So
a lot of what makes Mega Man fun in the moment-to-moment gameplay lies on the level design more than the character.
yeah, and that's not a knock, and I'm not even trying to say that I think Mega Man controls bad. I do think Mega Man controls. I think the game control is good for the kind of game that it is, but that's not the kind of game I want to play a lot of the time. That's why, again, I'd rather play X, where I could just be dash dancing around the whole time. Just dashing and jumping and dashing and jumping, and Mega Man's just over there taking a power walk. Regular Mega Man over on the treadmill.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the Mega Man controls. I'm just not good at it. To be perfectly candid.
But again, it's just like one of those franchises where it just doesn't click with us, or just missed our window to really. Because if I had known how cool all the X like robots and armors and stuff are, it's like, yo, this is like Power Rangers. If I had played like X4 as a kid, that would have been like, I would have been obsessed. I would have wanted to buy all the Mega Man X toys and whatnot. I would have wanted to buy like the ride armors. I would have wanted to buy the motorcycles and the swords and all that stuff. I would have been so hooked, and Capcom would have totally taken all my money. But just didn't happen at the right time window for me.
Yeah.
I had too many Blues Clues and Rugrats games on my PS1 and not enough Mega Man X games.
Alright, so you kind of brought them up briefly, but every time I've tried to play a shooter, it just, I don't know. It just doesn't click with me.
Now, when you say shooter, you're gonna have to be a little more specific. Unless for you, any game with a shooty pow pow does not work for you.
Almost every game with a shooty pow pow doesn't work for me. Like,
You heard it here first. He said he doesn't like Mega Man.
kind of ran right into that one. Well, I power walked right into that one, and then exploded to a bunch of orbs.
You slowly walked into it, and then you got hit stun for about 5 seconds, enough that it knocked you off the stage.
Yeah, like, I don't
He
know.
doesn't like Dragon Ball Z because that's a game where you do nothing but shoot at people with the key.
But yeah, like third-person shooters, first-person shooters, just I don't know. Except for like Doom for whatever reason.
Which is funny because Doom is like
the shooter.
no, it's funny because Doom has a lot of figuring out puzzles in the level design,
I think
which is something you said you were a little more antsy about with Metroidvanias. But like the modern Doom games and even the older Doom games are kind of like
that.
a hybrid.
I feel like Doom just kind of hit the right balance for me.
It's not too Metroid, not too Call of Duty. It's the right sweet spot in the middle for you.
Yeah.
I'm very curious if you'd like Doom Eternal, since I know that you played through Doom 2016 and really jived with that. And I feel like you'd like the older Dooms as well.
Yeah, I played the original Doom 2 years ago, and I enjoyed that too. I haven't played all the Doom games. It's not like one of my series, but I did just get into it. I liked it. But like, when I tried to play Overwatch briefly, or Fortnite, or Call of Duty.
Well, to be fair, those are also multiplayer. They're a very different kind of game. I think that it is difficult to find, single player, like story-based shooters. I mean, it's not difficult, like, it's hard to find them, but it's sometimes not, like, always obvious for the kind of games that we play. Like, Half-Life is probably an amazing game, but I haven't gotten around to it. Wolfenstein is really cool. I should probably play those. You should probably play the modern Wolfensteins if you like the modern Dooms.
You are correct.
The good Duke Nukem games. Yeah. It's just one of those situations where those games are kind of an exception to you because they're a bit different from the, run-of-the-mill shooters. Obviously, we're not really going to be kind of gamers who are playing Call of Duty and Battlefield and stuff. Titanfall looked cool, and I just never played it because it looked too much like Call of Duty and Battlefield, even though it definitely plays entirely different, and the Titanfall fans are going to chew me up for even so much as comparing them. But when you see what kind of games that they are, and the audiences they're trying to appeal to, how they market themselves, it makes them blend together. Like, I am down for a good game of Halo. I love me some Halo. It's one of those franchises where it's like, I'm not like a live or die for Halo, but I do have like, if you give me some Halo, I'll play Halo. I do enjoy that. But Halo's not, like, I'm not going out of my way to play first-person shooters because I like Halo. Halo is just one of the franchises that I enjoy. Although, that marketing was so strong, I begged my mom to get me a 360 so I could play Halo 3, because the Halo 3 hype was something else, man. It was something else. It was like
2000s
a drug.
were something.
Halo 3 hype was like a drug. They marketed that thing so hard. And like, again, it was a great game, so I'm glad that it motivated me to get a 360 and beg my mom for one. So I could play the third game in a franchise I'd never played the previous for a genre I didn't even know if I liked. And yeah, I didn't do anything else like that on the 360. I didn't beg my mom to play Call of Duty. I didn't beg her for Gears of War. Any of that stuff. I did get a... Did I get a GTA? I don't know if I got a GTA. I know I didn't like GTA that much. It just kind of bounced off me for similar reasons as we talked about before with open world games like Skyrim. It's just too much open-endedness. Not enough clear direction. For me personally, that just bores me. But yeah, shooters are just kind of I think it's just the style of the game and oftentimes the aesthetics that they pick. You know,
Yeah.
drab military shooters just aren't going to appeal to me. I just don't find that interesting.
Yeah, that's also definitely an element into it.
I don't think guns are that interesting, weapons to use. I think they can be fun to control, but I don't know. Especially the overly realistic ones. Like if there's something with a little bit more of an interesting edge, like I was very interested in picking up Cyberpunk, until obviously we all found out how that game was, but I like the difference in the styles. I like the way that, the game looked a little bit different. Had a bit of freshness. I did play a decent amount of Borderlands, and I did like that for what I did play of it. And I think it's just because it looks different, it feels different, and it has sort of, different, it has like a nice visual aesthetic that a lot of the realistic games lack. What we're saying is you should play Portal, Joe.
I really should. I'm surprised. I don't know why I haven't yet. Oh yeah, that's why. I didn't have a good PC to run it until the game was like super old and out of the public conscious. So I just didn't think about it until you mentioned it to me.
But Joe, Portal 2 was optimized for PS3, as Gabe Newell once said. I haven't played the original Portal. I played Portal 2. That game was dope as hell. That was another one that just kind of like, I bought it, and it just because it's marketing, I was like, oh, this looks cool. I'll buy Portal 2. If I had a nickel for every 2 that I bought just because I was bombarded with marketing for it without playing the first game in the franchise, I'd have 2 nickels. And the other one would have an X in its name. It'd be Poaxel. Kingdom Hearts 2. We'll get to that at some point, my weird history with the Kingdom Hearts franchise.
Yeah.
Which I don't have an issue with the Kingdom Hearts franchise that much anymore. When I was younger, I didn't really click with them as much. But now I'm like, yo, these games are good. The games are good. Again, we'll talk about this all later. I guess to like sum up where we're at with this, Joe, any other sort of styles of games that you think you just missed out on, or anything else?
Actually, this is a different story. Kind of the reverse. It's like a genre I still quite enjoy. I guess we kind of touched upon it before. I think we did. Is that I find it harder to get into fighting games nowadays because like people I would play fighting games with are farther apart, and I need someone to talk to while playing a fighting game.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're the only reason I touch fighting games. I do not click with fighting games. I mean, I like playing fighting game single player modes, which is why Tekken 6 is my favorite Tekken game, because I just like that it has like a dumbass beat 'em up mode. I love playing the adventure modes in Smash Brothers games. It's why I'm excited about Street Fighter 6, and I've never been excited about Street Fighter in my entire life until now, because it has a story mode and like a little map. I am that person who will buy a fighting game for its single player.
I will say, I do like Street Fighter gameplay. I don't get to play Street Fighter much, but that character creator has me interested.
I didn't even know there was a character creator. I just knew there was like a whole open map environment thing.
It's like obscenely flexible, from what I've heard.
Maybe we'll have to do a Street Fighter 6 episode.
Yeah. No, it's just I love the craftsmanship that goes into the fighting game genre, but I'm not like talented enough or dedicated enough to really get the mileage out of them outside of a casual setting.
Yeah. Well, even in like the casual setting, sometimes they can be obscenely difficult. Some fighting games, their single player modes are brutal enough that it's like, dude, I just want to like advance the story. I'm not trying to like break my damn thumb. Just trying to finish this shit. Fighting games are like fighting games make it difficult to like get into the genre in general. It's funny, everyone's been talking about Budokai Tenkaichi is getting a new one, and some people are like, why are they making this? What's the point of it? We already have fighters. And I forget whose video I saw where they're talking about it, how it just makes a lot of sense because fighters is such an intensely competitive game. Like, how the hell is anybody gonna get into that? Hell, even like the story mode AI, I think has been changed and tweaked to be like a lot harder. a lot of these fighting games now, even their normal fight like difficulty levels, are really freaking hard to fight. Like
It's
I played some fighters and I played like I think they're like tweaking the single player difficulties to be harder. I This is a small sub tangent, but here's the thing that could get people to not play this game. Power Rangers Battle for the Grid. I played that. I beat the arcade mode a couple times before in like the early days, and then after the new patches, I had a friend over for like the afternoon, and he literally had spent like 2 hours to beat 7 arcade matches because the difficulty was fucking insane on like the lowest or like the normal difficulty. Like it was brutal. And like I know the other fighting games are doing that too with like their single player. It's like there has to be a good mix between giving you a fair challenge and being not like too easy, but like not brutally difficult. And so a lot of games fail that, and that always can turn people off. So I do worry that some of these competitive fighting games might be doing a disservice to themselves by being so difficult off the bat. And why something like Tenkaichi's exciting, because that's a more casual style fighter that anyone can just get into and play that isn't gonna kick your teeth in. Because that can really dissuade someone from wanting to get into a franchise if it's so brutal that you just can't do it.
Yeah. Even outside the context of single player, fighting games generally have that reputation that unless you get into them like launch week, you're probably just going to get bullied by people that are already better than you.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's really hard to make like certain genres more user friendly. Well, I guess I have like one more thing to add to the discussion is that I've played many MMOs, but only have played one to a significant degree, and it wasn't until Final Fantasy 14 Online, and even then it's only like every now and then I play a chunk of it, binge it, get really addicted, and then stop for reasons.
It's one of my biggest disappointments is that I had spent years hoping that we were gonna get news about Phantasy Star Online 2 coming to the US, and when it finally did, and it was an Xbox exclusive for a while, I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna play this. And man, did I bounce off that one. Because I guess I wasn't used to having Phantasy Star Online being online. For context, because that sounds absolutely stupid, I played a lot of Phantasy Star Online on the GameCube, and obviously I didn't have it connected online, so I was used to playing as an offline game and really enjoying it. So to see this new one be an active MMO with timed events and premium currencies and all that other modern game stuff, that just washed over me so badly that I just didn't want to play it. I'm like, there is too much of an active experience going on here that I just can't. I'd prefer it if it was like the older game where it was offline, but just kind of like I can just play it at my own pace and not have to worry about times and getting people together and all that mess, you know. So even just, time and just having these games that are always connected can really be a big deterrent in actually getting into them.
Yeah, especially with a lot of these online games, there's a very big case of like you either get in while it's hot, or you're just going to be hanging around with the experienced people.
Yeah.
Or
like
or a more modern problem where you get into a live service and it's already on its deathbed.
It's like if I want to get into a live online MMO, I need to have people to play that with, and I had no one to play PSO2 with, so I could play by myself and just have all these other people around with me. I wish I could just play it offline. There might be an offline option, but I don't think there is. Be a little silly for a game called Phantasy Star Online to have an offline option, but I mean, it should. First one did. I just don't want to deal with all that crap.
Like, I feel like I barely didn't get into World of Warcraft. And I think that it's partially because, like, I didn't have my own computer that was strong enough to run it when I first got it. And by the time I could play it, I don't know, other stuff was just going on with me. got into different things.
This is certainly the discussion of almosts. There's so many things that we could have almost gotten into.
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, like it feels like I could fit. Like if I had more time, I'd probably think of way more things I almost got into. But it's kind of infinite. Like we make innumerable decisions and just choices off the tip of a hat.
I mean, oftentimes we don't get choices, you know? When you're a kid, you don't get to really decide what, you know, oftentimes your parents buy you or what kind of experiences you have, what content is provided to you. You know, with me, like, I got my PS1 as a kid and it was like a gift from our uncle, and, well, most of the games I had were like preschool games and like a handful of like platformers and stuff. So it's like, yeah, I didn't play Mega Man as a kid because I didn't have them, but I played a hell of a lot of Blues Clues, Blues Big Musical, you know. So that's a game that like I have a emotional connection to, regardless if it's good or not, because that's what I had as a kid. And like, you know, there's games that you grow up and you ride or die for, even if they're not that good, or just because you share that emotional connection to them, and you missed out on experiences because it's like you didn't know. You didn't have the context of making that decision. You didn't have money. You couldn't choose to buy that game or not. Or, you know, you're older and it's like life gets past you and you miss your window to play a game because it's just, you know, wasn't the right time. We both didn't play Pokemon Legends Arceus. And it's like, it's a great game. The time just wasn't right for us and we just missed out on it. And yeah, we could have go back and play it whenever, but it's not going to be relevant now. Especially in post Scarlet and Violet. It's just like, it just is what it is now.
Maybe one day I'll play it. I'm not even sure how much I'm gonna like it, but that's just a reality I just didn't get to see.
Yeah, we didn't get a chance to play that game in its prime and enjoy the hype and be part of the conversation. And now if we play it, it'll just be, you know, as a historical piece. Bro, skateboarding games are too fucking hard to get into. They are so... I think it'd be easier to learn actual skateboarding. I have tried so hard. I love the Tony Hawk games, but I hate the Tony Hawk games. I can't freaking play them. There are too many freaking button combinations and inputs I need to figure out for doing tricks. I just can't grapple them.
Yeah.
So like I can play them, but I'm never having like the most fun I could because I'm spending too much time like thinking about how to play the game rather than just casually getting into it and enjoying it. That's all I gotta say.
Oh,
I can always...
there's one more. Probably should have mentioned this when we were talking about JRPGs. I've started Earthbound several times, but I feel like I want to make that its own video.
Oh yeah, you could definitely talk about that one. Earthbound, the game you've started more times than anything. See, there are games where it's like, I don't mind, you know, playing a good chunk of them and restarting them. If they're an older game, an arcade-style game, or just a harder game, I don't think there's any issue. Like, if you enjoy a game, and you haven't finished it, I don't think that's invalid. But for you specifically, Earthbound is like a specific example of like, you're trying to find the enjoyment, so you restart it to try to get that.
Yeah. That's kind of
Yeah.
my feeling.
Yeah, it's like I've never finished Yoshi's Island, but like I enjoy the game enough that I'll start it up and like eventually get hit with a wall, just difficulty, or just I won't be able to finish it. But that doesn't mean I don't enjoy the game. Whereas again, with you, with Earthbound, it's like you are restarting because you are trying to find the enjoyment.
Yeah, I'm trying to find what the hubbub's about, but I don't know. I just don't see it. That's legitimately the kind of game where it's like, perhaps more than any other case on this list, that's like, I'm not seeing it.
Am I the one who's wrong? Has everyone been gassing this game up for nothing? Maybe sometime this year, Joe will make a video and find out.
Yeah, you know, maybe I will play Earthbound this year and
You're the reason Mother 3 hasn't come out yet, Joe. You have to finish your Earthbound before Reggie will put another one on your plate. And I know he's not even part of Nintendo anymore, but Reggie is still part of the Mother 3 hype train. Reggie's not gonna put more Mother on your table until you finish your other Mother.
You know, yeah. Regardless of how I feel about it, maybe I will just finish Earthbound this year.
And then we can get Mother 3 and everyone can thank you. Mother 3 in 2023? Well, we hope you guys have enjoyed this discussion. And there's one thing you can absolutely try, which is hitting that subscribe and hitting that bell. You can definitely try that out and commit to that. Become an active fan of our channel. And check us out for more discussions and whatever weird stuff we decide to do.
Yeah, and I hope you stick around for more.
Because we will see you guys back at the table.